all their points in like the last 6 minutes of the game. So miracles happen and miracles cut both ways. So congratulations to the Knights from St. Michael, Albertville. Now in 5A, we could see a rematch. If this thing goes according to form, we could see a rematch of last year's Prep Bowl. If Owatonna wins this week and Elk River wins this week, they're both favored. They could meet in the semifinals, and those are the last two state championships. And 5A, I think, is really tough with those two teams. St. Thomas Academy is undefeated. The former Gophers assistant, Dan O'Brien, in his first year at St. Thomas Academy.
Good for him.
They've done a great job. They're undefeated. They're in the 5A
But the Gophers
playoffs.
doing fine without him, by the way.
Oh, there's no problem. No problem there. So football games this week. We'll have 3 games on Thursday, 12 games on Friday, 13 games on Saturday. Like I said, it's going to be cold. And, let's hope people still come out and support their teams, bundle up, bring your hot chocolate and your blankets. And hopefully it's not going to be wet. Cold is much easier to deal with than cold and wet. So
absolutely.
Let's hope.
Where do you want to go next?
Let's go
some more volleyball?
Let's go to volleyball here. That's the big state tournament this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the XL Center. 3 classes in volleyball, 8 teams in each class. Your top-seeded teams are Egan in 3A, Casson Manorville in 2A, and Minneota in 1A. 3 very good volleyball teams. I have not seen Minneota this year, but they're a regular at the state tournament. Egan is dynamite. Casson Manorville is a great team. A couple of tidbits from Volleyball Marshall. They're at this is their 28th trip to the state volleyball tournament, which is the state record. And speaking of 28 times at state, I got an email from Richard Tuttle. He's the band director of the famous Ada Borup Pep Band, which is hard to describe. Great sound. They have it's not your typical. It's an atypical pep band, but there's a lot of electricity involved in keyboards and guitars. So Richard asked me, he sent me an email. This is going to be his 28th trip to state tournaments with his band. That's how good Ada Borup is in a lot of sports. He wondered if that was a record, and I said, I'm looking at all the categories. I don't see one for pep bands or band directors, but it'll be good to see the Ada Borup Band at the XL Center this week. And this is one of my favorite state tournaments, and it's just, the XL Center has a lot to do with that. We basically put a big black curtain right at center ice under the scoreboard, and there's 2 courts. And everybody brings the band. Like I said, if kids are getting out of school, boy, oh boy, there's some big crowds at this thing. It's really fun. This is one where I need earplugs because there's a lot of screaming people right behind me. Media, we sit courtside. It's just a blast. And these are great athletes, great teams. I'm really looking forward to this.
Absolutely. You want to go to tidbits or you have some more state tournament
A couple
stuff?
of tidbits,
Okay.
and then we'll have some Twitter questions. I made an announcement on John's Journal and MSHSL John on Twitter this week. We've got a partnership going with Second Harvest Heartland, a great food bank here in the Twin Cities, which works all over the state. We're tying in with them to have kind of a food donation campaign kind of tied into the football playoffs. Teams that get to the state semifinals, we're encouraging them to have food donation drives at their schools. We're going to have a competition who can gather the most food for Second Harvest Heartland. Go to John's Journal on mshsl.org. There's a lot of details. So I'm just waiting to see which teams win this week to get to US Bank Stadium, and they're going to get some information from me that spells this out. We're really excited. This is kind of the ground floor. We hope will turn into a bigger deal with a partnership with the high school league and Second Harvest Heartland. And Thanksgiving's a great time to do it. Let's help out people not as fortunate and feed the hungry in Minnesota. So there'll be more about that as we move on. Band of the week at soccer, the Duluth East Band. They are dynamite, and they played people who were alive in 1984. You're forgiven if you weren't. Take on Me by the band. It's a band called Aha. This is one of the great first early videos of the MTV era. We're old enough to remember that, Jim and I. And then
it was back when MTV played music videos.
Yeah, music. Yeah, they played videos, and they've got videos right in their name, and they played videos. Yeah, it was one of the great ones. And if you go to YouTube and just Google Take On, or go to YouTube, look for Take On Me by Aha. It's really, maybe it's not as cool now as it was.
It was pretty cool back then.
We were pretty blown away.
Kind of like Star Wars,
There you
it
go.
might not impress you now, but it impressed the heck out of us back
sure
then.
Did. And the Duluth East Band also played. I'm going to use the German pronunciation. 99 Luft the Balloons. That's a great pep band song. We don't hear enough. Well, the original. We had some debate on Twitter about this. We think the original artist was somebody called Nina, or
Yes.
some people called Nina, 1995. So
I remember that, actually.
way to go, Duluth East band. They
Can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I remember that.
That's exactly right. So I tweeted earlier today, who's got questions? And we got a bunch of questions here, and they're still coming in. Some of these we may hold over till next week.
Sure.
Here's the first one out of the chute. I replied and I said, this is a statement. This isn't a question, but the statement is, and I won't out the person who made it. Make all caps, make all the private schools hold their own state tournaments. That way it would level the playing field for the rest of us, parentheses, public schools. And then there was a follow-up question from somebody else. Okay, how can MSHSL address the disparity between the depth of talent in private and public schools? And you know what? This is state law. Private schools are part of the high school league. That's state law. If you want to complain about that, go to your state legislator. But these things are studied. These things are looked at. And I don't know the exact percentage of private schools that are, as far as the high school league memberships. Let's say I'm just picking a number out of thin air. Let's say it's 18%. The percentage of state championships won by private schools matches that number. They're not winning more than they should. If you look at it mathematically, there are X number of private schools, and private schools win X number of state championships, the same number. And yes, you hear about the very successful private schools, but you probably don't realize there are 20 times, 30 times more private schools you never hear about. That just don't have great sports traditions in a lot of sports. So I'm not saying I'm tired of that question, but there's just so much misinformation. Private schools have the same rules for transfer. They're all the same. And basically the way this all starts is a student starting 9th grade picks their school, and that's their school. If they want to transfer after that, basically they sit out a year of varsity competition. Now there are reasons why they may not have to sit out a year, but the rules are the same. Whether you're coming from private to public or public to private or, public, private, it's all the same. So, I get it that people are upset. They think it's unfair. To me, it's not. This is just the way it is. And I never went to a private school. I didn't have any kids who went to a private school, but I know how this works. So maybe we can lower the temperature on that. It's always going to be a topic. Here's one from Josh Van Klompenberg. Does a great job as a sports reporter in Marshall, Minnesota. Why doesn't the state tournament field get seeded in football? I believe most or all of other sports get seeded at state. Well, 6A football gets seeded when they open the playoffs. And the rest of them, it's almost a sport-by-sport thing. If the coaches' associations want their sport to be seeded, and in the sports that do seed, we seed them. We have the coaches do the seeding, and we come up with the top 5 seeds. So, and the other 3 are randomly matched up with seeded teams. If it's up to me, you seed 1 through 8. We know who the 6, 7, and 8 seeds are, but I think the feeling is that you don't want to embarrass a team. Hey, you're the worst team at state. But that team, any other team would gladly come to state and be seeded 8th. But if the Football Coaches Association wanted seeding at the state tournament in all classes, it's not hard to make that happen. That's up to them. And this is one that we've talked about before. Any talk about lowering the amount of teams that make the playoffs in high school football? This is from Trevor Moore. And we just went through this with the first round football section games. You have number 1 seeds playing 8 seeds. 8 seeds never win. 7 seeds hardly ever win. A 6 seed will win once in a while. And when I moved to Minnesota a long time ago and learned that every football team goes to the playoffs, I thought it was nuts. I still don't quite understand it. I'd be happy if a section has 8 football teams, if the decision was made. And sections, I just learned this not too long ago, sections can do their playoffs however they want. If a section says we're going to have 6 teams go to our section playoff, you can do that. And then you could give the 1 and 2 seeds a bye, have the other 4 teams play. If 7 and 8 who don't make it to the playoffs want to finish the season with an extra game, they can play each other, and one of them will finish the season with a win. That's just the way it is in Minnesota. It's tradition. That's a big part of it, I think. But I've had coaches ask me this, and we talked about this on the show, Jim, a couple weeks ago. If we're worried about safety in football, why do we have top seeds playing number 8 seeds in the first round of the playoffs? And that's a fair argument. So I don't think there's anything, coming down the pike right now on that. But that's a good topic for discussion. And one final Twitter question from Chad Schwartz. This is talking about the sites for state baseball and basketball. Chad writes, why is it that baseball in Class 4A gets the St. Paul Saints facility, and all the classes have Target Field for the state championship games, and 4A and softball, well, all the classes in softball are at Caswell Park in Mankato. Metro schools make up 90% of the 4A class. Wouldn't the softball stadium at the University of Minnesota be a better venue? It's a great venue. Anybody who's ever seen softball there, it's a great venue, but we have to have a site for 4 classes. That's just how it is. And he's got a hashtag Title IX. It's not Title IX. Baseball and softball are different sports. It's not the same thing. And I'll tell you what, if there were a facility for softball in the Metro that has everything Caswell Park has, I could see it moving to the Metro, but Caswell Park has 6 fields, plenty of parking, nobody's riding a shuttle bus, plenty of seating, plenty of room for fans to move around. It's a great setup. They're great hosts in North Mankato. And some people have asked me, at the softball tournament, they said, why can't we play everything at Caswell and then move the 4 state championship games to the U? Well, because then you got 4 games at one site. You're probably talking 2 more days. And, we do our all tournament things. We have, just a lot of things have to happen when all the teams are in the same place. To me, it's not unfair. It's just 2 different sports, 2 different facilities. The decisions made are different. It's a great question. Again, these are all great questions. We're happy to answer them. This has maybe been the number 1 week we've had here for Twitter questions. Yes. I don't know if it's something in the water, but a lot of great questions. We always appreciate them.
Yeah, and the show is growing. We're getting more listeners. The network's getting more listeners. It'll continue to get more popular. Good time for you or your business to jump on and work with us and reach our audience, jsouhan47@gmail.com. Thanks again to Gourmet Parlor Pizza, and thanks to John for all the great work he does. Do you have a final thought for me, John?
I would say bundle up and go watch some football this week.
Yeah.
And if you're a weenie like me, come on over to the XL Center and watch indoor volleyball. It's going to be another great tournament week, Jim.
Thank you, John. Thanks to all of our listeners. Thanks to all the hosts across the network that have made the network a success. And we will be back to talk to you about playoffs and other stuff and cold weathers and weenies like me who don't like going out in the cold. Oh, I'm going to throw one last final thought in here.
Yes, sir.
Second Harvest, I know they're a great organization because Springsteen's very careful about who he aligns himself with, and whenever he comes through town, he always recommends working with Second Harvest, so we should all do so as well.
Yeah, they're great people. I've really enjoyed getting this ball rolling with them, and we're really excited about this.
Attention business owners and managers. Are you overwhelmed by digital marketing? Are you serious about making 2019 different? Glory Ramsey and Successful Marketing Group want you to blow the doors off 2019 and double your business growth this year. Get started now with a free 45-minute audit and action plan. Glory will personally evaluate your business and create an action plan you can start now. Go to successfulmarketinggroup.com/Cheryl Reeve. Don't let 2019 start without you.